Hello everyone, back with me, Teguh, Amor, Patria. Welcome to the fourth session, Spatial, Perspective, and Heritage Resources. Tourism is inherently a geographic phenomenon, and geographers are among the most avid researchers of tourism, one of their primary concerns being the industry's locational characteristics. There are many unique spatial patterns associated with tourism, not least of which its market origins, and the spread of tourism throughout the world. A particular interest from a geographical perspective is scale and locational differences in supply and demand. This is especially true for tourism based on cultural heritage resources, as cultures vary considerably from place to place. Now, let's talk about the spatial characteristic of heritage attractions. Understanding the spatial arrangement of attractions and the components of heritage supply in a given area is critical for evaluating the impacts of tourism, visitor management, and site maintenance and conservation. Wall in 1997 suggests that tourist attractions can be divided into three kinds based upon their physical spatial attributes, such as points, lines, and areas, with each one requiring a different approach to management, planning, and commercial development. Point resources are standalone, individual sites where crowds of people congregate at one time in a small space. Some good cultural examples of these include ancient temples, archaeological sites, monuments, historic houses, forts, battlefields, museums, festivals, and theaters. Linear attractions include lake shores, coastlines, scenic routes, rivers, and linear landforms. Some of these have intrinsic linear properties, such as rivers, while others have been created to link point resources and to guide users along a specific path. Linear resources are characterized by visitors being concentrated along narrow strips of land and transportation corridors. Areas are larger resources that usually encompass many smaller attractions. They also attract many visitors, but the spread of area resources allows visitors to be less concentrated in a single space. Examples of area attractions include historic city centers, parks and protected areas, and scenic landscapes. Now, let's talk about scale. Scale is an important geographical concept in understanding many aspects of heritage tourism, including demand, supply, and impacts. Timothy, in 1997, introduced the concept of scale in relation to heritage attraction types and suggested that different scales of attractions appeal to different audiences: global, national, local, and personal or individual, depending on the site characteristics and the visitor's degree of personal connection to the place. Global. Attractions that fall under the category of global heritage include sites and monuments that are well known throughout the world and have come to symbolize certain regions, countries, ethnic groups, or eventful periods of time that have impacted the entire world. For example, the Great Wall of China, the pyramids of Egypt, the Roman Colosseum, and Machu Picchu and Stonehenge. National. At the national level are attractions and sites associated with the development of countries. For example, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the Gettysburg Battlefield. Local or regional. Locations and buildings that have played an important role in the patrimony of region, town, village, or other community in promoting them as a tourist attraction. Individual or personal. This scale of heritage is obviously the most meaningful personally to each individual. It features people, places, and events associated with one's own personal and familial past. Heritage resources are found in a wide variety of physical and cultural settings. One of the most common ways of viewing heritage settings is rural and urban locations in a combination or both. Urban context. Ashworth and Tunbridge in 1990 conceptualized the notion of tourist historic cities, which they defined as an area of older cities where the urban structure, architecture, and artifacts are used to create a place-based heritage product. For example, the old historic centers of Rome, Amsterdam, Paris, Madrid, and hundreds of cities in Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America. Rural setting. Rural landscapes are among the most valued heritage assets in the world. For example, rice terraces of Southeast Asia, the meeting of nature and culture on the steppes of Mongolia, small villages and pastures in the European Alps and in Africa, etc. For many urbanites, rural life and landscapes are seen as something different, something beyond the ordinary scapes of everyday life and something that draws them in. So what are other spatial considerations? There are more spatial concepts related to spatial considerations, and several additional ones are worth mentioning in this session. First, spatial distribution of different types of heritage attractions. This means there is an uneven utilization of the built paths, which is primarily a result of political priorities, conservation legislation, and lack of funding. For example, although cultural heritage is rife in the developing countries, it is not as well preserved or exploited for tourism as it is in the more developed parts of the world. Second, it is based in age. Thus, age and antiquity are relative terms. For example, what is considered old in the US may be new for Europeans. Third, there is a tendency for the magnitude and reputation of heritage places to draw crowds from varying distances. Although an individual building or monument might possess significant heritage appeal on its own record, its overall social value increases when it is clustered with similar attractions. For example, buildings in historic urban zones might appear to be rather run-of-the-mill on their own, but when considered in the company of other historic buildings, they create part of an attractive historical setting. That's all for session 4. Thank you and see you in the next session.